In Ahmedabad, 241 on board die. But of the 242 passengers and souls on board, one miracle survivor on seat number 11A cheats death, now being treated at a hospital in Ahmedabad. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just reached Ahmedabad, taking stock of the situation on ground, likely to visit the crash site in just a few minutes. CCTV visuals show the plane crashes just seconds out of taking off, possibly a power failure into the engines. Engines lose thrust and the aircraft comes down crashing, killing 241 of the 242 souls on board. Tata Group has announced a 1 crore rupee compensation for the next of kin of the families that were impacted by the crash yesterday. Well, this seems to be the first Dreamliner crash which has broken the 15-year flight safety record of Boeing's Dreamliner, the Boeing 787 aircraft series. Investors not taking well to the news. Boeing stock tumbles 5%. The question that we asked today is, should the Dreamliner be grounded for now at least until the cause and the root cause of the accident is determined by the investigative agencies? Another big story that we're bringing for you. Operation Rising Lion has been launched. Israel strikes Iran's nuclear enrichment plant. The Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps chief has also been killed. Trump warns of massive conflict ahead of Operation Rising Lion. Oil prices have surged 12% on the fear of escalation of conflict in West Asia. Latest visuals coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Ahmedabad and will visit the Air India plane crash site in Ahmedabad to take stock of the situation. Remember, the Air India flight from Ahmedabad to London carrying 242 passengers and crew crashed seconds after takeoff on Thursday afternoon. Now, barring one miracle survivor, no one else escaped the crash. Remember, even former Gujarat Chief Minister Vijay Rupani was among the 241 people killed. The airline said in a statement that of the 242 aboard, there are 241 confirmed fatalities. It said the sole survivor is being treated in a hospital. Now, the Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner aircraft took off at 1:38 p.m. from Ahmedabad Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport, runway 23. Now, seconds later, the aircraft plummeted into the BJ Medical College hostel mess 5 kilometers from the airport, and over 100 students were gathered for lunch. A towering plume of smoke was visible from afar after a massive explosion was heard. Now, as per a DGCA statement, the pilots gave a mayday call immediately after takeoff, signaling a life-threatening emergency, but did not respond to subsequent calls made by the airport and the air traffic control. Now, Civil Aviation Minister K. Ram Mohan Naidu said that a formal investigation has been initiated by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau in line with international protocols set by the International Civil Aviation Organization. As per the rules, the first report must be filed within 30 days of the incident. Meanwhile, Air India flight AIC 129, which took off early morning today from Mumbai for London, is returning to Mumbai, according to Flight Radar 24. More details are awaited, but what seems to be the reason right now is the escalation of conflict in West Asia after Israel has struck nuclear enrichment plants in Iran. Well, we have a special guest joining us this morning. We have Mr. Parvez Damania, aviation expert. Mr. Damania, good morning. Thank you for your time. Looking at the footage, looking at all the visuals, looking at all the images, is there a cause of accident that can be ruled out at this stage?
See, first and foremost, it's very difficult to say what has happened. But one thing is 100% for sure. The engines lost power. Now, what is the reason for that? We don't know. I think right now, some people are saying there was bird hit, some people are saying there's no thrust, some people say contamination of fuel. A number of theories are there, but I think it's very difficult to say anything till the black box on the cockpit voice recorder is found. I'm surprised that up till now the black box on the cockpit voice recorder hasn't been found. But I think to find out the real reason, we'll have to wait. Right now, it's anybody's guess.
Is there a cause that we can eliminate, Mr. Damani? Is there a cause that we can eliminate at this point? Because the visuals that we are seeing, especially the CCTV footage which shows the entire journey from takeoff to crash, is not really showing birds visible on the runway. So can a bird hit at this stage be ruled out, or it's still too early to say that?
No, it can't be ruled out. But another thing, what is very difficult to understand, a bird hit on both the engines.
Right.
This plane are tested for full weight takeoff with one single engine, for takeoff and one single engine for landing. The engines are so powerful that it can do a takeoff and landing with full load. So it sounds very remote that both the engines were hit by bird hit at the same time and the power did not drop. So I think it's more or less a control system failure. It has to be some kind of mechanical failure because the pilots were well trained. Both the pilots and the co-pilots, the pilot had 8,500 hours, the co-pilot had 1,200 hours. So I do not understand how this has happened. And see, Tata is a very responsible company. Air India is now, of course, owned by Tata, as Air India is aware. So Tata would not have cut any costs as far as engineering or maintenance is concerned. They are very, they have a great reputation. They're very careful about their perception and reputation. So I don't think there's any chance that there was any engineering quality standard breakdown. See, this is the first fatal accident of 787.
That's right.
But please remember one thing, that the 787 has had such problems in the past, but this kind of full hull destruction and this kind of death has never occurred in the past.
All right. I just want to stay on the issue of a potential bird strike. I want to stay on the issue of a potential bird strike for just a minute more, Mr. Damania, and I want to understand what is the data on bird strikes in Ahmedabad. I was reading that Delhi NCR, the airport in Delhi, Indira Gandhi International Airport, has reported the maximum number of bird strikes historically, and second in line happens to be Ahmedabad. So, for the sake of some clarity right now, is there a safety protocol at the Ahmedabad the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel International Airport to prevent bird strikes, given the dismal track record it has of bird strike incidents reported in the past?
No, I think airports are very careful. They're trying to work all the time to avoid birds, but there is a list of birds that exists around Ahmedabad airport. See, some people are saying, I don't know, the fact that there's a slaughterhouse nearby. There should be no slaughterhouse till about a radius of 13 kilometers from safety's sake. So a slaughterhouse, garbage, slums could cause main reason for the attraction of the birds. So, you see, I think we'll just have to wait it out. But two engines failing at the same time by bird strike seems very, very difficult and very strange to me.
All right. And my final question to you, there were also theories yesterday being reported of possible fuel supply to the engines getting killed. But some of the pilots I spoke to have confirmed to me that that the fuel supply to both the engines comes from two different sources, which pretty much suggests that it cannot again be fuel supply to both the engines killed by a single incident. Is that true about the Dreamliner?
Absolutely right. Plus, there's some talk of fuel contamination, which also I find hard to believe because tests on... See, this aircraft flew from Delhi to Ahmedabad. So all checks were carried out at Delhi, all checks must have carried out at Ahmedabad, the pilots must have carried out the checks, the engineering team must have carried out the check. So it seems, and this plane is only 12 to 13 years old, which is nothing for a well-maintained 12 to 13 year plane is as good as a new aircraft.
That's right. In fact, for context, the 747 that has been gifted by one of the Gulf countries to President Donald Trump for the next Air Force One is 13 years old, which is actually older than the aircraft in question here, which crashed in Ahmedabad. So age of the aircraft definitely doesn't seem to be an issue.
Age of the aircraft is immaterial. A 20-year-old aircraft can be better maintained and safer than a 12-year-old aircraft. So we cannot go by the age of the aircraft. It's a question of what kind of maintenance schedules are carried on and how is the airline maintaining the fleet.
Right.
I don't, because even before Tata took it over, Air India always had a good engineering track record. And after Tata's taken over, it must have improved. So age has nothing to do with this. This aircraft is flying successfully all over the world. It's a very advanced aircraft. The engines are very, very powerful. They performed extremely well. So I think now we just need to wait till the black box is recovered, the cockpit voice is recovered to get the exact situation.
Right. I'll just take exactly a minute more, Mr. Damania, and there is also another theory doing the rounds that perhaps there is a difference between the fact that the landing gear is down and the flaps of the wings of the aircraft are not in alignment. Is that something you have noticed as well? And as an aviation expert, can you tell us what that theory really is?
I noticed, but that is what I'm saying. The only thing, I can't think of any issue as far as pilot error is concerned or maintenance. There has to be some kind of technical failure that occurred by which this accident has occurred. I think it's more of a technical failure. Now, what, how, why, that will the black box will reveal. Already the chairman, already the managing director of Air India has reached there. Already Boeing has dispatched a team from Seattle to India. The accident investigation board has started its work. I'm sure DGC has secured the site. So I think everything is going to be done well. We are going to get the exact situation and the report. But whatever has happened is very, very unfortunate and sad.
All right, Mr. Parvez Damania, thank you so much, sir, for your time this morning. Thank you for coming at short notice and explaining the situation to us as we speak right now. Well, we also have a ground reporter at the crash site in Ahmedabad. Nivriti Mohan, my colleague at News 9, is at the crash site right now. Nivriti, is there anything that we can confirm on the black box and the cockpit voice recorder? Is there anything you're picking up on whether the investigation agencies have been able to retrieve the black boxes yet?
As of now, what I say is that forensics teams that has arrived here half an hour back, it is already inside, and Prime Minister Modi is also there inside the building where the plane had exactly crashed. You can see the building, the third building from here of the BJ Medical College Hostel, and on the top of the building you can see the damaged portion where the plane has exactly crashed. It is on the other side, and from behind the buildings is the roof from where the plane actually take off from the, and from over the buildings they fly by. Now what had happened yesterday, as you already know, that it just when it gained an altitude of 600 feet and over 600 feet, it suddenly started coming down. And had its coming down been more vertical, the plane would have crashed on a slum, which is also there behind these buildings. So the casualties would have been much more, plane a little bit where it crashed. But
all right, we also have Nivriti. We will try to come back to you with more details, but we also have Group Captain Pandey joining us this morning, of course, a former Indian Air Force officer and an aviation expert. Group Captain Pandey, good morning. I was speaking to Mr. Damania some time back, and we are trying to see if there are certain causes for the crash that can be eliminated at this stage. Now, we were trying to draw this theory, which has been reported widely on the undercarriage being down, on the wheels being down, but the flaps on the wings not really being aligned in takeoff position. What is your view on that, sir, having looked at the footage and prima facie your assessment of what you're seeing?
Good morning. Basically, the flap and undercarriage, this combination, which is really in media since last evening, what is happening is basically when you fly an aircraft, there are four forces. One is the weight of the aircraft, which pulls you down, and to counter this, we have got lift, and then something is called drag, and which takes you back while thrust takes you in front. So unless all these forces are maintained properly, aircraft won't be moved. So this is the basic of the flight principle. Now, when you are saying flaps are basically designed to increase the drag. Basically, when an aircraft is coming for landing, then they want to, if speed is higher and you want to reduce the speed, and then accordingly, once it touches down on the runway while landing, then they have to reduce their speed so that they should not strike the boundary wall or something else in the runway. Now, second aspect is the putting undercarriage up. This, well, while takeoff, you have to put it off. Reason is, then again, you are trying to reduce the drag. So basically, why these two elements are important and why it is in discussion is basically due to drag and rest. If drag is high, obviously aircraft cannot move, and it is more thrust which is required. When I say thrust, it means engine power which is required to overcome all these negativities. Now, having said this, what the profile we have seen, the video which has come yesterday, the CCTV footage from the runway, there are 4 parts of the total operations. One is aircraft getting ready and coming to line up, and second part is moving on the runway, and then third is taking off and then finally crashing. So all functional checks, it is the standard operating procedure across the globe that every pilot is supposed to carry out all functional checks which are required for having the smooth operations of the aircraft. Number one, so aircraft pilot must have, Mr. Sabharwal must have undertaken all those actions, and after that they came to line up, and then on the clearance call of the ATC, they have started running on the runway. Right. When they are moving on the runway, there is nothing, no abnormality, no smoke, no anything else which is there, which is raising the attention. Subsequently, once it leaves the runway, when you see rolling out means it is leaving the runway and coming up, it is climbing. So still there is nothing normal. Why I am mentioning this in so fine detail? Had it been in any case of any abnormality, captain of the aircraft always aborts the takeoff. Right. But this is possible up to the final end of the runway. And the second point is, a few people are saying that aircraft took long path to get airborne. Right. Runway length is about 3.5 kilometers or so. So when your load of the aircraft was about 220 tons, when I'm saying 220 tons, about capacity of the aircraft is 248. Out of 248, 242 people were there on the board, as well as because it was a flight which was going for 9 hours plus for a distance of 6,900 kilometers. So all the accessories, why I'm saying all logistic support, whatever accessories are required, catering and other things, all were there on board. So, and in addition, the more significant factor is the fuel of 1.29 lakh liters. Right. So huge amount of load is there. So to put up on the sky, you need a huge amount of the power, while these engines which were there, General Electric as well as the Rolls-Royce engine is a very famous engine, and they had nice record. I'll have to cut you short, Group Captain Pandey. We have visuals coming in of Prime Minister Modi heading towards the crash site. Well, of course, our reporter on the ground, Nimrati Mohan, just confirmed to us that Prime Minister Modi has already indeed reached the crash site, and this is, of course, the visuals that are a little delayed coming off of Prime Minister Modi and his convoy reaching the crash site, trying to take an assessment of the situation on ground. Well, we also have a very interesting guest joining us this morning, Mr. Dilip Cherian, Image Guru. Mr. Cherian, good morning. Thank you for being here with us on this very important day. I want to first understand from you, what is the impact of what we saw yesterday, the most unfortunate aviation accident that we witnessed yesterday at Ahmedabad? What does this do to Brand Air India? Brand Air India in itself has, of course, seen ups and downs, being government owned, having been bought by Tata Group in 2022, the merger with Vistara last year. But safety concerns were never really part of the image of Air India. And now this is something which is cropping up after yesterday's crash. How do you see Brand Air India getting impacted?
Air India, Karthik, as something which has been hit rather badly, and in many senses this is going to be difficult to recover from. Why do I say that? Because what happens is that with a crash of this magnitude, it moves up to the top of the searches, and this is what comes up the moment you're looking at Air India. And unfortunately, everything else that is being done, all the other actions that they may put into place, including relief to the bereaved families, is not going to be the focus. The focus, unfortunately, is the fact that Air India has been under criticism for quite some time now on the level of maintenance of the aircraft. Passengers, of course, can only respond and critique the fact that the insides of many of their planes are a ramshackle condition. Now, one does not want to correlate between that kind of maintenance and the maintenance of engines and other things, or talk about what the causes of the crash are. The perception that is emerged is that of an airline that has not paid enough attention to the kind of requirement besides what is just mandatory.
So, Mr. Cherian, again, like you mentioned, you can't really correlate the two. You can't really talk about customer service and customer convenience in the same breath as you talk about flight safety. And these seem to be very different issues. I just want to, jog your memory back to other aviation disasters that we have seen. Of course, the most notable arguably being the MH370. And the mystery is yet to be solved so many years on, decades on, in fact. And Malaysian Airlines continues to survive, thrive, continues to fly passengers every day. Remember the Ethiopian Airlines which crashed, again given the faulty Boeing 737 MCAS upgrade which the pilots were not trained on. Ethiopian Airlines continues to fly, and Air India now, with the merger with Vistara, is now among the largest airlines in Asia. Now, is this dent which one may assume could hit the brand likely to be long-lasting, or do you think public memory is short and people will continue to fly the airline and also continue to fly the Dreamliner, whether or not it is chosen to be grounded?
I think the Dreamliner as an aircraft has had an exceptional and brilliant career history, and I doubt that there is too much that is going to be read into the safety factors of the Dreamliner till such time as we get the black box and further details. But as far as Air India is concerned, and the comparison with MH is actually incorrect, because the MH mystery, as you said, has given Malaysian Airlines a fig leaf of some kind of, unknown and obscure reasoning, which passengers are likely to forgive and forget. But I think that Air India has to do a lot to make sure that the kind of damage that a crash of this humongous kind has done on its record as far as public perception of its safety is concerned, its efforts to ensure that this is an airline which is on the mend. Don't forget that whenever a public sector airline goes down, there are cries for fixing accountability at the very top.
That's right.
I see that corporates who actually own this also need to recognize that responsibility does go up all the way to the top, and the fact that unless the company shows that the action it is taking post the recovery of all the data and analysis of the causation, the company will also have to make sure that those responsible, if they can be accounted for, are taken to task.
Well, of course, who exactly would be taken to task again, Mr. Cherian, is a function of the investigations and what they reveal on the real cause of the accident. So would the buck stop at Boeing? Would the buck stop at Air India? Or would the buck stop at maintenance teams and agencies that undertake regular maintenance of aircraft? Or would the buck indeed stop at pilot training? Again, these are issues which are yet to be answered, but we are getting live visuals now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is at Ahmedabad. He's at the crash site and he is walking the corridor potentially leading to the mess, the hostel mess of the medical college where the tail of the aircraft eventually crashed. Well, I will thank Group Captain Pandey and Dilip Cherian at this stage and move on to another story that we are tracking for you this morning. And this is, of course, news coming in from Israel, which has undertaken Operation Rising Lion, a large-scale military campaign aimed at halting Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now, on Friday, Israeli forces struck key Iranian targets, including nuclear facilities, ballistic missile production sites, and top military commanders. Explosions were reported across Iran, including at the major uranium enrichment plant in Natanz. Now, Iran state media said the head of the Revolutionary Guards, Hossein Salami, was killed in the Israeli attack. Reports also say a residential area in Tehran was hit, killing several children. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a decisive moment in the nation's history. Now, in a recorded address, he vowed the operation would continue for as many days as it takes to eliminate what he described as an existential threat from Tehran. Well, markets are not responding well at all to the latest that we are hearing from the conflict in the Middle East, now really reaching its high point. It seems Israel has gone ahead and conducted the Israeli Air Force fighter jets have gone and conducted strikes at the uranium enrichment plant in Iran. Oil prices have shot up as much as 12% on this news. And if you look at the markets as they open right now, the Indian markets are also down. All indices, all major stocks on the Nifty 50 are in red this morning. Reliance Industries is down 1.6%. Coal India is down 1.6%. And this is the bloodbath that we are seeing on the markets right now. We have Mr. Feroz Aziz joining in this morning. Feroz Aziz is the Joint Chief of Anand Rathi Wealth. Feroz, good morning. Another piece of bad news for the stock markets, not just in India, across the world. If this conflict were to continue, and it seems that it is likely to continue, at least that is what we are hearing from Benjamin Netanyahu, what happens to oil prices? What happens to investors who are invested in stock markets?
Good morning, Karthik. Like you rightly said, there is one more bad news. But fortunately, it's not the last nail in the coffin, for the fact that there is already a lot of selling from an Indian standpoint. If I look at it from a capital market standpoint, equities have already seen some selling in the futures market. FIIs have a 78% short position in index futures as of yesterday. If this news came, if they were 78% long in index futures, the news has a different impact. When they're just 22% long like they were yesterday, the news has a different impact, point one. Point two, since we've also in the cash market returned close to about 4 lakh crores over the last year and a half to FIIs, we don't have too much to give away. The frothy monies of FIIs, especially hedge funds and active fund managers, have already quit the Indian market. So I personally think that it will not have a large impact on the cash market as well. Now comes to the DIIs have pumped in about 6 lakh crores last year, and they continue to do so. So I personally think it will be a buying opportunity, because I would categorize this as an escalation, not a completely fresh war, like the war when it broke out between Russia and Ukraine had very, very large falls. Okay. And that's why I would say that it will be a buying opportunity if it gave you a 5-7% correction.
Sure, a buying opportunity, but what happens to oil prices? Oil prices, in fact, crude has already crossed about 12% or so higher, is what we were reading this morning, at about $73 a barrel, up from under 65 a barrel just a few days ago. And from here, what happens to overall global economies, the Indian economy, if oil continues to rise?
I think definitely that could have a little medium-term impact if the oil prices remain elevated. If you look at the fiscal deficit, of course, the position is very, very healthy. If you look at, but that can actually change. So if the oil prices remain high for the rest of the financial year, then I think the rate cut cycle is over, point one. Point two, we have now reached 45% level of fiscal deficit as a percentage of total revenues. We at Anand Rathi like to look at fiscal deficit as percentage of revenues, not just as percentage of GDPs. It had touched almost 100 during COVID. That means if my revenues, tax revenues and other revenues are equal to 100 rupees, I was spending 200, and hence the deficit was 100. So the point I'm trying to make is now fiscal deficit has come back into control with respect to percentage of revenues, because the direct tax collections have gone up 13.7%. GST numbers have come healthy, reflecting a great GDP number for this financial year as well. But I'm a little worried on the fiscal side if the crude prices remain elevated due to this war tensions, if that remains for a couple of quarters.
All right, Feroz Aziz, thank you so much for your time this morning. Well, of course, we will continue to track the markets, we will continue to track the oil prices, and we will try to continue to track the economy as well and see what turn it takes. But meanwhile, the market's not responding well at all to the escalation in conflict in West Asia. Nifty 50 is down 1.4%, below the 25,000 level at about 24,603 at 9:25 a.m. We also have Sensex crashing almost a similar 1.13%, below the 81,000 mark at about 80,000. Volatility, as expected, is higher by about 10% this morning, above the 15 levels or so. Well, all of this is a direct consequence of what we are seeing happen in the Middle East, in West Asia, after Israel took up the mantle pretty much, on its own, saying that there has been no US involvement in taking that decision to go ahead and strike the nuclear enrichment plant in Iran. Let's listen in to what Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, said.
Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish state refuses to be a victim of a nuclear Holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, as Prime Minister, I've made it clear time and again, Israel will never allow those who call for our annihilation to develop the means to achieve that goal. Tonight, Israel backs those words with action. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program. We struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000s of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too must be stopped. Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan failed. Iran and its proxies try to encircle Israel with a ring of fire and to attack us with the horrible attack of October 7th. But the people of Israel, the soldiers of Israel, rose like lions to defend our country.
Now, following Israel's strike on Iran, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington was not involved in Israel's strikes against Iran, while also urging Tehran not to target U.S. interests or personnel in the region. Iran's foreign ministry, meanwhile, said, and I quote, "United States, as Israel's main supporter, will be responsible for the consequences of Israel's adventurism." Now remember, Iran and the US have held multiple rounds of nuclear negotiations in recent months, but they yielded little progress. Meanwhile, Oman, the acting as a mediator in the US and Iran nuclear talks, warns that the attack risks wiping out diplomatic pathways and destabilizing regional security as well as stability. Well, we will slip into a very short break at this moment. When we come back, of course, we will bring you all the latest visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the crash site in Ahmedabad. He landed just a few minutes ago. We'll also get you an on-ground report from our reporter on the ground, Nivriti Mohan, and a very special guest who's waiting to join us here on the show on what could have possibly gone down with those engines on the Dreamliner that eventually led to the crash, killing 241 of the 242 people on board and more casualties reported on ground. You're watching Newsline.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news.
This is the drive of your dreams.
You and I, we are dreamers. You and I, we are believers.
Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
नए बिरला ओपल्स वाटर प्रूफिंग की क्रैक प्रूफ टेक्नोलॉजी सीलन से बचाती है।
हमेशा वाला लगाना चाहिए था।
इनको जमाने से पीछे चलने दो। आप चुनो नया बिरला ओपल्स।
सर, पेन रिलीफ के लिए
ये देखो, ये काफी है।
2 हफ्ते का टूर है, कहीं कम ना पड़ जाए।
दुबे जी, ये छोटा सा डायनाबार QPS प्लस आपके 2 स्प्रे के बराबर है।
पेश है डायनाबार QPS प्लस।
लगा के देखो, मान जाओगे।
डायनाबार QPS प्लस।
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Welcome back. We continue to track the disaster that struck Ahmedabad yesterday, the AI-171 flight that crashed, killing 241 people on board. Well, we also have now our reporter on ground, Nivriti Mohan, joining us live from the crash site. We also have visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi having visited the medical college, the hostel where about 100 people. These are live visuals that we are getting right now of Prime Minister Modi. He has exited the hospital. He has done a survey of the crash site where the tail of the aircraft had hit the mess of a medical college which housed about 100 people during lunchtime. Also, Nivriti Mohan, my colleague on the ground in Ahmedabad at the crash site, is live with me now. Nivriti, take us through what do we know. We are seeing visuals of Prime Minister Modi now leaving the crash site. Do we know where he's headed and what his agenda is from here? Nivriti, can you update us on what you're picking up, the latest? We are seeing visuals of Prime Minister Modi's convoy now leaving the medical college, the crash site, and heading somewhere else. Do we know where Prime Minister Modi is headed from here, Nivriti?
People who are the rescue teams also. And now after this site, the Prime Minister has headed towards the hospital where the injured persons have been admitted, and also the one survivor of the plane crash who was inside the aeroplane. He is also there, has also been admitted. So the Prime Minister has headed towards that hospital. Now what we are hearing is that the has also been recovered and it has been seized by the NSG, and now what that will be that it will be taken to the laboratory concerned, and then the entire investigation, it will be, the black box will be decoded, will be taken out, and
Are we able to confirm at this moment that the black box has been found and the cockpit voice recorder has been found? Do we have this confirmation right now as we speak that the investigative agencies have indeed found the black box? Can you confirm this for us?
They have not officially confirmed this, but this is what we are hearing through the sources, that the black box has been recovered and will be taken to the laboratories. But yes, we should wait for the official confirmation on this. But this is from the sources that I am telling you, that our reports that black box has been recovered. It will be taken to the laboratories, and the entire investigation, if black box is found, then entire investigation will revolve around the black box, which will tell us about how did it happen. Was it a mechanical failure or engine malfunction or a bird strike or an onboard fire, or can this be a human error? So those last conversations between the crew members, the pilot and the co-pilot, between the pilot and the ATC, those conversations can be recovered through the black box, and the last minute efforts that the pilots must have taken to recover from the situation. All those efforts and whatever technical struggle the pilot went through, that will also be there on the black box.
Absolutely.
So once it is sent to the laboratory and the entire investigation is done, it is decoded, then we will come to know about it. Although it is said that within 24 hours, the initial few details may come out when the black box is recovered for the investigation agencies to carry out the investigation. But it will take more time for the more details to come out.
That's right. Well, we also have another guest joining us this morning. We have Mr. Divish Agarwal, aviation expert. Mr. Agarwal, thank you for waiting patiently. I want to understand from you what happens now. Nivriti Mohan on ground saying that at least her sources are telling her that the black box has been recovered. Now, where does the black box go? Will it go to the US? Will it go to Boeing? Will it be here in India? And what are the timelines for this investigation? Initial reports need to be filed in 30 days, but what is the process that gets followed from here on?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me. So there are two black boxes. They're called black boxes, but actually they are kind of bright orange in color for visibility. And one is what's called the cockpit voice recorder, and the second one is the DFDR, digital flight data recorder. And on a absolutely latest generation aircraft like the 787, it will be what is called solid state, which will be, similar to what is the memory on our phones or on SSD drives kind of thing. Of course, a much more robust memory. And it is encased, heavily encased and designed to sustain, survive fires and things like that.
Sure.
The black boxes can be read in India, but if there is any kind of damage to them, please understand, we had almost 125,000 liters and people are still not putting their heads around it. That's almost equal to 10 tanker loads of, fuel. It's a lot of fuel to burn. So if there is any kind of damage, then the US NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board, which is a completely independent agency, sort of similar to the Indian, what is called AAIB, Air Accidents Investigation Board. They have a lot of specialists, and Boeing being an aircraft made in the United States, they will be the primary agency in terms of, other than of course the AAIB, which will be the lead agency. They will be an agency that provides immense levels of technical support. They will take the black boxes to Washington and decode it. Chances are that the black boxes should be intact, but if there is any damage, they will have to take it to the US, where they'll need more specialized equipment. And the closest timeline I would urge listeners and viewers to recall is the recent accident that happened at Washington, D.C.
That's right.
When, an American Airlines plane
went
collided.
into the Potomac.
Yeah, but it collided with a military helicopter.
Right.
So I would expect, and this would be the best thing, and it would be a learning lesson, and for us all to see how well both the ministry and Air India share information with the public, because this is a time to build. I would not say the word. Yeah, it is a way to build trust. We saw it when AirAsia crashed. Tony Fernandez was, actively sharing information with everybody. So people get a sense of reassurance. When people tend to, oh, this is secret, that is that, not this, that, this, that. That's when people start going, what are they're trying to hide, kind of thing. That natural thought comes in the mind. So I expect within a week, next 3 to 4 days, we should get some preliminary information.
Okay.
Not say too much, and definitely not the reason for the cause of this crash. I heard in your intro you were talking about the engines,
right?
And the Air India Dreamliners are powered by the General Electric Gen X engine. It's GE NX, and it's the same thing that I think almost over half the world's airlines use the Gen X engine. Some of the airlines use the Rolls-Royce engines, and the sort of predecessor to the Gen X engine was the GE90, and the GE90 engines are used on every modern 777 in the world. It is a source engine. There is no second engine choice. So these are incredibly reliable engines. I was seeing in some of the pilots forums and various other things, people saying dual engine failure. It's not even 1 in a billion chance. It's not even 1 in a trillion chance. It's basically close to impossible. So let us, I think, instead of speculating about this thing, yes, there is a loss of lift. We can clearly make out there's a loss of lift. Why that has happened, that will take time. If I may say something, there's a concept for when they do aviation accidents, they call it the Swiss cheese model. There's a particular type of cheese that is made in Switzerland called the Emmentaler. Right. And it's a cheese, a lot of holes, but the holes are, all over the place. For an accident to occur, all the holes...
Stay with me, Mr. Agarwal. We are also getting live visuals of Prime Minister Modi, who is now at the crash site. He is inspecting the remains of the ill-fated AI-171 Dreamliner jet, which did crash in Ahmedabad yesterday. He's at the crash site, and these are the visuals that we are getting. Well, of course, these are visuals of the crash site, and here Prime Minister Modi now with a group of experts, perhaps briefing him on what went down yesterday. Of course, we have been seeing visuals and bringing those visuals to you, but at the crash site, remains of the aircraft, there are some parts, some material that is lying scattered, and of course the debris is all around, not just of the aircraft but also the buildings that have been charred by the plumes of fire that we saw, of course, in visuals yesterday. Firefighters have gone ahead and doused the fire, it seems now completely. Till late last evening there was still some fire visible inside the buildings, but fire seems to have been completely doused. There are bulldozers there trying to perhaps remove the scraps of the aircraft, perhaps in a bid to recover the black box or any other remains of the aircraft. We also have the aviation minister walking beside Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi there looking at the remains of the aircraft and the structural damage to the building, which also resulted in loss of life of people who were inside that medical college building at the time that the Dreamliner jet operated by Air India, the AI-171 from Ahmedabad to London, crashed inside the building. Well, the tail of the aircraft, as we can see, is still dangling on that building. Well, it hasn't yet been removed, but I'm sure once the investigative teams are putting together the aircraft, trying to investigate what really went down on that ill-fated flight, the tail of the aircraft will also be removed. Meanwhile, buildings, some we were told were under construction, so thankfully not too many residents expected to be in that building at that time, but some workers could have been in the buildings under construction, which also have been charred by fire. And remember, the fire, the explosion was humongous because it's more than 1 lakh kilograms worth of fuel on the aircraft, which had to undergo a 9-hour flight non-stop from Ahmedabad to Gatwick Airport in London. And the fuel, with a single spark, with the amount of fuel that the aircraft was carrying, can cause a massive explosion. We heard some of our guests yesterday say that it is a ticking time bomb. Every aircraft in the air carrying so much fuel is pretty much a ticking time bomb. And that's exactly the tragic end that we saw to AI-171's journey to London, cut short just outside the perimeter of the airport yesterday with this horrible crash. Well, Mr. Agarwal continues to be here with me, but I want to also bring to our viewers a brief history of things that have not gone down too well for the Boeing, the aircraft maker, US aircraft maker Boeing. Well, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner that crashed yesterday is the pride of the US company's catalog for long-distance planes. Now, it is a fuel-efficient wide-body aircraft able to transport up to 330 people. Now, after first entering service in October of 2011 with Japan's All Nippon Airways, 2,598, that's almost 2,600 orders of the plane have been made by more than 80 airlines around the world. There are as many as 889 still awaiting delivery. Now, its appeal is its lightweight structure, half of which is made from composite material, allowing it to burn up to 20% less fuel over long distances than older equivalently sized passenger planes. Now, it can also be used for point-to-point services, meaning it can fly direct to a destination instead of relying on a hub system used by heavier aircraft. Now, Boeing says the use of the 787 has opened up as many as 180 such point-to-point routes, more than the 80 initially banked upon. Now, Boeing's most serious issues surfaced after the 2018 and 2019 crashes of the Boeing 737 MAX fleet, where an MCAS safety feature was installed, but lack of pilot training on overriding the computer's command led to the death of hundreds in two separate MCAS-related Boeing 737 MAX crashes. Now, the fleet was subsequently grounded until pilot training was upgraded. Now, then came Boeing's program for the Dreamliner, which also suffered several setbacks, including repeated and costly delivery suspensions between 2021 and 2023, mainly due to assembly faults and manufacturing quality issues. Now, take our viewers to last year when in the month of January 2024, a door plug blew out of a Boeing flight mid-air in the US, resulting again in the halting of production lines for finding the root cause of the problem and its fix. Now, Boeing also saw several rounds of factory workers going on strike asking for better wages and a change in management as well last year when CEO David Calhoun was replaced by Kelly Ortberg in the month of August last year. Now, the US Federal Aviation Administration ended up reinforcing quality assurance checks and inspections on the production lines. Now, in April this year, the FAA authorized Boeing to step up its production pace to make 7 planes a month from 5 previously. Now, in the year 2024, that's last year itself, there was also a whistleblower case. Sam Selepor, who worked at Boeing for nearly 2 decades, had in fact accused the company of putting profit over safety and retaliating against him by the raised concerns by involuntarily transferring him to a different program. Now, he later told the US Senate about structural problems in the Dreamliner model and claimed small gaps and improper assembly could cause early wear and possible structural failure. Boeing had then released a detailed defense of its aircraft, claiming it is fully confident in the Dreamliner. Now, then came the Boeing Starliner case that took Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmer to the International Space Station last year on a short trip, which ended up with the astronauts being stranded in space for as many as 9 months because of technical issues with the Boeing Starliner. It was eventually Elon Musk's SpaceX Dragon that brought them back. And then, of course, we saw yesterday's horrific Air India Flight 171 that crashed in Ahmedabad. Boeing stocks have plummeted as much as 5% in trade yesterday. Well, Devesh Agarwal continues to be with me. Mr. Agarwal, my final question to you this morning. Is it time, until at least the preliminary investigations are through, that Boeing should go ahead and ground all Dreamliner aircraft across the world?
No, Karthik, and before we go forward, you used one term to which I take a very strong objection to. You said every aircraft is a ticking time bomb because of the fuel it carries. Sorry, This is something which is a pet peeve of mine. I really wish media does not indulge in what I call scaremongering. That was a wrong statement.
This is something that aviation experts like
No,
yourself
I'm sorry.
mentioned on our
I
channel
do not
yesterday.
accept you,
We're just
sir. You may
reporting
like
on
to
that
take
and
a
not
picture,
really
but I'm
casting our
sorry.
own opinion here.
That is not something I would urge you not to do it. And
Point taken.
I'm very
It's not
sorry.
our opinion. It's of aviation experts who were on our channel
No,
live
sir.
yesterday.
No
saying
aviation
this.
expert worth his salt will ever turn around and tell you aircraft are ticking time bombs.
Sure, Mr. Agarwal, that's your view, but there's a counter view that we had. But my point
No,
of question to
then
you,
that
in the
person
interest
is a
of time
fraud.
right now,
I'm sorry.
is it
That
time
is-
for the sake of passengers' safety for
No, sir, the
Boeing to
Dreamliner is a
ground
very
all
safe
Dreamliner aircraft
The
jets?
Dreamliner is a very safe aircraft. There are over 1,200 of them that have already been delivered and are
Yeah.
flying. In fact, if you go to a site called Flight Radar 24, you can
Yeah.
put in a filter and say 787 and just see the number of 787s in the air right now. Airlines are not fools. They're not going to put 200, 300 million dollars on each aircraft, and many of them have got hundreds in their fleets. They're not going to put that kind of investment on an unsafe aircraft. That I can assure the whole traveling world.
Right, but
is the safest form
until
of
the
travel.
cause
Aviation is
of the
safest
crash
form of
is known,
travel.
Mr. Agarwal, until we know whether it was an engine failure, whether it was a mechanical failure, is it worth risking more passengers in the air flying the Dreamliner? Presuming at this stage, and only presuming at this stage, that the crash that happened yesterday had something to do with a technical snag in the aircraft.
Exactly. So let us not speculate. It could be, as I explained earlier itself, the Swiss cheese model. It is never a single point of failure that causes a crash. It is a series of actions and events. It could be mechanical failure. It could be electrical failure. It could be human failure. It could be weather. It could be fuel. How do you know the fuel was not contaminated? It is a
Fair
wild
enough.
speculation. But I'm saying, so nobody, it is not good to speculate. And definitely this is not a situation. If it was something like, as you said, the 737 MAX, MCAS, of course, that's a horrific, period in not just Boeing's history, but in human history.
That's right.
That is, well, guess
But
what?
eventually it did lead to the grounding of the 737 MAX fleet, did
Absolutely.
it not?
Agreed.
So the point
And
is that
if you
should we wait
if you
for
recall-
more potential issues to surface before a decision on grounding a variety of aircraft is taken?
First, let us, even if we wait about 15 days, the people will have a reasonably decent idea as to what happened and why it happened. They may require 2 years to come up with an absolutely detailed report to, which will be used as the learning experience. But when it comes to, at least let us give them 15 days to find out what exactly where things are happening. That is where they are going to have to distinguish. See, if you recall, in 2013, the Dreamliner had issues with batteries.
Right.
And the whole worldwide fleet was immediately grounded.
Right.
The regulators, governments, airlines are not fools.
Sure.
Air India is on the hook for 1.8 crores for every passenger. I'm still thinking, who is going to announce compensation for those poor 75 students who were just eating lunch?
That's right.
Well,
Mr. Agarwal, we are
is
completely
focused on
out
the
of time.
compensation
I'm
for-
sorry, I'll have to cut you short. We are completely out of time here. But the word coming in from Mr. Devesh Agarwal is that let's not hurry into prompting an action to go ahead and ground the Dreamliners just as yet. Well, we will leave it at that on this show. But a lot more coming up on the other side of the break. You are watching News 9.